If you're an attorney who's used any AI tool like Claude Code, Claude Cowork, ChatGPT, OpenAI Codex, you might have run into a situation where you uploaded a PDF and the AI didn't seem to fully interpret what was inside of it. This can be especially problematic for legal work because so much of what lawyers actually deal with day to day is stuck inside of PDFs. I'm going to explain why this happens. We're going to go over examples of different PDFs, and you're going to learn what OCR actually means and how to use it to your advantage. You can see on my desktop that I've got Claude Code open. But before we dive in, I wanted to explain some of the basics of AI models or large language models like Claude and ChatGPT. They operate over two modes. One is text. They can very easily read and write text. They can interpret it extremely well. But the second is images. And if you've ever uploaded an image to ChatGPT or Claude, you know what I'm talking about, and I'll show you an example of that right now. So you can see here, I've got this image of the 2016 Cubs winning the World Series. I'm going to copy and paste it into the context window. I'm going to show you Claude is going to understand exactly what's going on. You can see here, I pasted this into Claude and I told it to describe the image in detail. And if we take a look at the response, it's telling us that it's clearly the Cubs in road uniforms. It can see visible jersey names. So it pulled out Kawasaki number 66 and Ramirez 39. And it's able to figure out where in the image they are. So Kawasaki was on the left, Ramirez is on the right. And it even caught the special 2016 World Series patch on the uniform. So sort of just like how you and I can look at this image and recognize the different parts of it and figure out what's going on, Claude can do the same thing. And not only that, it can actually recognize text in the image. The downside, however, of using images is context usage. As you know, LLMs have a context limit, and images take up this limit a lot faster than text does, generally speaking. So the more images you upload into your chat, the more context you're going to use, the slower the model is going to be, the dumber the model is going to be, and overall, the more expensive it's going to be if you're billed by tokens. And again, in Claude Code, if you're in the desktop app, on the bottom right, you can see your context usage here. Right now, I'm only at 2%, which really isn't so bad, but this was probably 10,000 tokens just to look at the image. Okay, so now let's actually look at a PDF. This one right here is an excerpt of the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure. If you've ever used a PDF viewer, you probably noticed, especially if it's text, that you can easily copy and paste from the PDF and highlight like I've got up here. This PDF was almost certainly created from a Word doc. So somebody in the state of Florida has a docx file with all these rules and they export it to PDF. Under the hood, the PDF file format is pretty complicated, but one of the things that it includes is the text layer. The text layer is hidden within the file. You won't be able to see it unless you have Claude extract it for you, but you can take a look at the PDF on the left and the text layer on the right, and you'll notice that they're virtually identical. And because this is just a PDF of text that's formatted nicely, what we really want when we're talking to Claude is just for it to access the text layer. And note, this text layer was embedded within the PDF because it was generated from a word processor. So there's no OCR involved. The PDF itself actually had an excellent text layer. So on the right, I have this version without the text layer, and on the left, here's the version with the text layer. Now, if you just were to look at these with your eyes, honestly, you'd have no way of knowing if there's a text layer or not. But if we start highlighting, we're going to notice that it is possible to do, but it looks a little funky. Like if we look over here, right at this last sentence, the period at the end doesn't really get highlighted. Whereas if we go over on the version that has the text layer, that period is definitely highlighted. And it does look a little rougher around the edges. Like if we go over here, we can see that the highlight doesn't fully go over the F on the left or the E on the right. Whereas in the version that does have the text layer, it looks perfect. What's actually happening is the preview application, which is what I'm currently using on macOS to view this PDF, is OCRing this document in real time. And what OCR means is optical character recognition. So under the hood, it's running a complicated software process that is actually looking at this PDF as if it were an image and extracting the text from it and trying to figure out what the image represents in terms of characters. So it's kind of like how in this Cubs image, you or I can look at it and start to make out some of the letters on the jerseys. That's what is happening here. We have software that is doing that process, except it's looking at basically a screenshot of the rules and trying to map it out. And I extracted the text layer from this PDF as well, and unsurprisingly, it's going to be a completely empty TXT file. So the text layer is completely empty, and if you want Claude or ChatGPT to actually read the PDF, it's going to have no choice but to convert it to an image and do this OCR itself. Here's that same PDF again, except I actually added a text layer to it by running OCR manually. So I had Claude do OCR and then add the text layer to the PDF that didn't have the text layer. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but you're going to see here that we're able to highlight, and overall it looks pretty good, but there's a few places where it's off. So I'm going to pull up that TXT file. And again, this is the TXT file that I generated by running OCR. So we basically had the computer look at the image and figure out what the text was. And this is different than the original PDF where it was able to get the text from the word processor and just attach it to the PDF. So if we look here, it looks pretty good. And I think we're going to have to look a little bit before we find the first kind of weird thing. And yeah, if we look here under rule 1.061, choice of form, subsection 3, we're going to notice that if the does not have a space. And if we go down here in the real PDF, you're going to see that there clearly is a space. So the OCR is not perfect. And frankly, this is kind of as good of an input as you could give the OCR because it's just an image that is very clear in the text that it has. But even then, it's going to make mistakes and it's going to miss stuff like spaces or maybe periods or other things like that. If you're trying to OCR something that's handwritten, so have the computer analyze a handwritten document, it's going to be much, much harder for it to do so because there's a lot more irregularities in the characters. Okay, so next we're going to look at this PDF, which is actually a map of the state of Arizona. And right away, one of the differences between a PDF like this and a PDF of the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure is that the images in this PDF actually matter. Now, there was formatting and styling in the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure with stuff like bolded headings and indents and all that. But if you just had the TXT file of the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure, you wouldn't really be losing that much information because what matters is the actual text itself. However, if you were going to look at a PDF like this, where there's images and colors and all that kind of stuff, if you only had the text layer, you are missing a lot of information. Now, this PDF does have a text layer, and that's why I'm able to highlight various parts of the page. But I'll show you what it looks like. So on the right, I have the text layer, and on the left, I have the map itself. And I know it looks really nasty, but that's what's happening because the text is only part of the image. And if we try to look over here, we can see stuff like here's populated places, which lines up here, and then page, Powell. It's getting confused because it's not really just a block of text, as I keep mentioning. There's images, the text has different placement, there's different font sizes. So most of the text is going to be there, but it's going to look really garbled. And what that means is if you have Claude read a PDF like this and it doesn't view it as an image, then it's going to be missing a lot of the information. And this one in particular is probably a little extra dangerous because there is a text layer, and Claude and ChatGPT by default often try to be token efficient. So what that means is when they open a PDF, they're going to first look for a text layer. And if it's there, they're only going to read that because the text layer is far more token efficient. It saves context and it's faster. So if that's there, why bother converting everything to images and using the images? Well, in this case, it would actually be a problem because if it only looked at the text layer, it would be missing all the information about where the borders are and what color the roads are. So what that means in practice is you sometimes have to double check that your AI read the proper version of the PDF. And so what that means is if you upload the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure with a perfect text layer, it does not need to convert that to images because the text layer is good enough and frankly better. However, if you upload a map of the state of Arizona and there's a lot of images and colors and the text layer removes all of that, obviously, and the AI only reads the text layer, then it's as if you uploaded a completely different image and the AI saw none of the other important stuff. Usually they're pretty good at figuring out what they need to do with the PDFs, if they need to convert them to images, or if the text layer is fine, but not always. And I've seen a lot of people run into issues where they upload a PDF and it seems as if the AI has no idea what they're talking about, even though it's right there in the chat. And this is exactly why this happens, because the AI gets tricked into thinking the text layer is good enough or that it doesn't need to convert it to an image, when in reality, oftentimes it does. So if you run into this situation, you can always interrogate the AI and ask if it OCR'd the document or if it actually read the images. If the answer is no, you can of course just tell it to do it again. And when you're uploading a document, if you know it's something that's like scanned and it's handwritten or it's just going to be more image heavy, you can just say in your prompt that you want to make sure that it reads it as an image, and that'll get you much better results overall. I do think this will get better over time, but it's important to understand these fundamentals because it's going to help you get the most out of AI and reduce your hallucinations. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.